Hey, Sean G here from Chasing the Truth. You're about to get some of the best of samples of shows I've done over the last 5 years. God bless y'all and enjoy. This is Chasing the Truth with Sean Graham. Today we're chasing the truth with Lon Strickler. He's big into the paranormal. If you've ever researched anything that has to do with cryptids, ghosts, or whatnot, your browser has probably pointed you to his website, phantomsandmonsters.com. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Dark Waters, the big DW, the king of horror narration. He kind of set this interview up for us. And Lon, I really appreciate you coming on today, man. Really.
Hey, no problem. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Well, tell me a little bit about your blog site and your new book that came out, I think, in December of last year.
Yeah. First of all, the blog. I started the blog back in 2005. Now, I've been involved with paranormal for almost 40 years, off and on. And it was mostly investigating paranormal activity in houses, homes, other locations where people had trouble. This was a time when paranormal investigations weren't really a big thing at all. It was kind of really fringe back then, more so than it is now. And I'm intuitive, so it helped in my work. I discovered I was intuitive back around the age of 8 years old, and I've used it in my investigation work. Now, I had a Bigfoot encounter back in 1981, and after that occurred, I got very curious about cryptids for the most part. So I started investigating. Adding that to what I do. Oh. And it kind of led to, more and more delving into the supernatural, paranormal, and the just unexplained. And, it was got to the point where I was taking these notes in my research and kind of just hanging on to them. I wasn't really putting it out there. I was living down in Maryland at the time, and a gentleman who lived down there knew I was investigating a few things in the state of Maryland, and he had a website, and he asked if I'd start posting over there for him. I said, sure, So it got to the point I did that for about 6 months or so, and he said, you really need to start your own blog. This is around 2005. So that was the birth of Phantoms and Monsters, and it's been going on since. I have currently about 30,000 daily subscribers, which includes the free newsletter I put out, and it's kind of steamrolled since then.
Oh wow! So let's talk about your book. Let's see. The Mothman Dynasty, Chicago's Winged Humanoids. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I've been interested in the Mothman phenomena, flying humanoid phenomena for a long time. I had an experience in 1988 with a similar type of being here in Pennsylvania, where I do live now. And I'm living where I actually grew up. And because of that, I had done some research into this being, which I dubbed the Conewaga Phantom. And basically what was going on was this winged being, very similar to what people had been seeing in Chicago, that was being seen along the Conewaga Creek, a different location on the creek. And in fact, after I had my encounter, I had documented 6 other encounters along the creek. And in fact, the last one was about 3 years ago. So anyway, this got me interested into the flying humanoids. So back in 2011, there were 3 sightings in the city of Chicago of this dark colored being that had wings like for the most part, like a bat or a gargoyle, but it was decent size, 5 to 6 foot in height, with a wingspan of 10 to 12 foot. And some of the early sightings mentioned that it just showed up. Basically, there was a famous photograph taken at the first sighting, which was on Pulaski Avenue in Chicago. Kind of looked at what somebody described as a large sugar glider, and it was kind of an odd shape looking thing. But there were 3 sightings in 3 months in 2011. Then just nothing else happened. Nothing else was reported. Though Chicago has, after I've got into looking into this, Chicago has a history of flying beings. I mean, pterodactyl, pterosaur type beings, other flying humanoids, very similar to what's been seen. So this isn't something that's very new for the area. So starting in March of 2017, we started receiving several sighting reports of this being again. I mean, and then now this time, some of the sightings included very bright red eyes. Mm-hmm. Some of the early sightings, the wings were described as like that of the Mothman, or like a large moth. Or then there were some others that said it looked like a Lacusa or a large owl. But for the most part, most of the sightings were described as large bat-like wings, gargoyle-like wings, a thin, dark body with a small, thin head, and many of them had the red eyes. And these sightings continued all throughout the Chicago metro area and into northwest Indiana. So we had almost 50 plus sightings in Chicago in up until October 2017. So at that time, I wrote the book that explained what was going on. I had an investigative group that was working with me who lived in the Chicago area. We were following up on the reports, getting as much information we possibly could. The biggest problem was these sightings were so fleeting that it was very hard to get a photograph. Now, we did get one photograph that was indiscernible, and it was really hard to tell what it was. Mm-hmm. But the descriptions overall were very similar. And the one thing that really stood out was when the witnesses would talk to us, they wouldn't embellish on the story. They told you right off the bat what they saw, what they experienced, and they refused to change it, even though we tried to prod them. It just didn't happen. That's unusual. So since I wrote the book, we have been getting more sighting reports in Chicago, a few in Chicago, and we've been getting some in southern Wisconsin and into Milwaukee.
Oh, really? Anything in Indiana?
Yeah, we've got a couple of them in northwest Indiana. Nothing further south than just the northwest area, which is not very close to the Chicago suburbs.
Okay. Well, I have some followers and some good friends that live in Chicago. One of them is in South Chicago, and she's absolutely got the jitters about this Mothman. So tell me a little bit about the Chicago Mothman or Owlman. Tell me a little bit about how the public there is reacting to this. I know from this particular person that she's frightened to go out at night.
Well, it was one of those things. It kind of snowballed, I guess, to a point when the media just started picking up later. Most of the sightings were made by people who had no idea what was going on. They had not heard of it before. And in fact, some of the later sightings I received the past couple of months, people still didn't know what was going on. It's been in the media, in the local media, a few online outlets, but it really hasn't gotten to a point where it's a national story or an international story. I mean, as far as I'm concerned. Now, in the cryptozoological world and the paranormal world, yeah, it's known. But other than that, it's not really known. I talk to a lot of people in Chicago, and they'll be surprised when I tell them that this is going on. But the one thing that is interesting, and we had several sightings by police officers.
All right.
The city and the police know about it. They knew about it. And I have had a few officers acknowledge it. I had one woman who worked close to the mayor's office acknowledge to me that she saw one. But, because of her job and because the city has really not helped us at all in this investigation, she keeps anonymous about it. But overall, like I said before, these beings are mostly seen at nighttime between 9 and 11 o'clock. There have been daylight sightings, but it's the length of the body runs anywhere from 5 to 7 foot. It's dark black, dark in color for the most part. The wings come in several styles, but I would say for the most part it's like the bat wing or the gargoyle style wing. Sometimes the arms are detached from the wings, where the wings lay back on the body somewhat, or there are sightings where the arms are actually attached to the wings.
Okay.
This thing, it seems to propel itself by means other than flapping its wings. It's got some type of propulsion mechanism which is hard to describe, hard to imagine that anything could actually move like that, but it is definitely a flesh and blood being. Now, where it comes from, I have no idea. I believe personally it's an interdimensional being. It's from another reality, and it's not an indigenous species.
Okay, so if it came from another reality, would it be, like you mentioned, 2011 is when they first started popping up in reports and rumor. So if I remember right, in 2011, there was a particle collider similar to CERN over in Chicago. That was shut down then. Do you think that had anything to do with it?
Yeah, we've looked into that. That's at the Fermi Labs in Cook County, and that particle accelerator has said to be shut down. I really don't know if it is or not. There's been a lot of work being done in that facility. I've had people watching the facility for over a year now. There's a lot of things going on there now. I don't know what's going on inside. I think they've said that the thing has been shut down for at least 5 years, but honestly, I don't believe it. It's the largest. Well, actually, it's the first particle accelerator, at least in the United States. It's almost 40 years old. Before they turned it back on, and before the accident they had there was, it was, however it was used, I don't know. I don't know what was done. But, we haven't taken that theory out of contention, that it may have been something that was manifested by the use of a particle accelerator and a supercomputer type situation.
Yeah. So what would be the other theories that you have? Is it like supernatural? Is it like something similar to voodoo, black magic?
Well, yeah, there has, we have been using the, like I said before, the possibility of it coming from another reality, being summoned somehow. Now, when I say being summoned, either through some type of occult or some other means where a group would somehow summon it to use as a sentry or some type of retribution instrument. We had 7 sightings in the area of Little Village. Now, Little Village is a predominantly Hispanic area in the city of Chicago. They call it Little Mexico, actually.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of drug activity, a lot of cartel activity in that neighborhood, and there has been a lot of cult activity as well. Now, I'm not saying that this is what's going on, but it's just another possibility that we've been looking into.
Right. So, is there any activity? I'm just speculating why the Mothman is there. Is there an attraction? Like I know Chicago has a lot of violence, a lot of gun violence, and the bad aspects in some of the sections of the society lives within Chicago. Would that be an attraction to a similar creature?
It may be. I don't know if that's, this Mothman, I guess it kind of is, people kind of associate it as being a harbinger. And they take that in relation to the Silver Bridge collapse at Point Pleasant during the Mothman flap in 1967. Now, I don't really buy into that theory.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's just something that happened at the same time, and the people used that as an excuse to kind of try to explain this terrible tragedy in a small community. There have been other examples where people have stated that a flying being or a flying humanoid has been seen in the vicinity of a location that had a disaster. Most notably, the Blackbird Chernobyl, which was seen previous to the nuclear meltdown. But there have been other examples as well, though mostly after the fact.
Right.
It kind of comes up as an excuse, basically.
Right. Well, this is something I remember. I don't know if it's a Mandela effect or whatever, but about 2, maybe 3 weeks before the awful gun violence in Vegas with all the mass shootings there, I remember a report of a Mothman-like sighting in Vegas. Do you remember that? I tried to look that up since then, and I can't find any reference to it.
Yeah, I haven't. I don't recall any sighting in the Vegas area.
Well, then that must be a Mandela effect.
This is what happens a lot of times when a huge disaster or anything like that occurs. Then these stories start floating out there as something being seen beforehand.
Yeah,
and it's not necessarily something that actually happened.
Right. So you mentioned that you're an intuitive. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain to me the origins of that within your life?
Well, I was born and raised in a town, Hanover, Pennsylvania, which I actually live now again after living 40 years down near Baltimore. I moved back about 2.5 years ago. But anyway, I was born and raised in this town, and I used to spend a lot of time on the Gettysburg Battlefield, which is about 11 miles west of Hanover. So I spent a lot of time there as a kid. I used to ride my bike up and down Route 116 to the battlefield, and I was very attracted to it. I don't know why, but one day, and in the summer, I was 8 years old. I was in the Death Valley area, which is an area that's between Little Round Top, Devil's Den, and the wheat field.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an area of high concentration on the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg. A lot of death, a lot of things went on there. And for whatever reason, I don't know how it happened, I just suddenly started tuning in. Let's put it that way. I started hearing gunfire, smelling gunpowder, blood, hearing screams, yells. I mean, the whole 9 yards. I mean, I was experiencing in and out activity on the field. I mean, and I was seeing apparitions. It went on off and on for about 5 to 10 minutes. It kind of frightened me, but I in a way, I kind of knew at the time that something was a little different.
Right.
And after that, it's nothing that really bothered me as I grew. I didn't live in a haunted house or anything like that, though I went to the battlefield a lot and I did have experiences. But it's not like it's something many other people have experienced on the battlefield as well.
Well. Hey, Sean G. here from Chasing the Truth. You're about to get some of the best of samples of shows I've done over the last 5 years. God bless y'all and enjoy.